So check this out. Temps outside today, where I'm at right now, and I'm sorry, I just came out of the breeze, and I'm fidgety because I'm a bit madly ADD, so forgive me when I do that. I don't mean to, it's just it's an old habit. It's in that in-between stage, the hair, and it's like, I went outside, it's beautiful, it's in the 70s, but if you go out in the breeze, it's more like a 60s feeling. And what bugs me about that is that when I was in Virginia coming here, I was looking forward to, oh my God, I get to escape the Virginia cold weather and blah, blah. And then now I find out that Virginia's enjoying 75-degree weather, and we are going through cold and hot or whatever, and it's always humid. Even if it's 25 degrees outside, it's always humid. So, you know, it's like a dark cloud on the weather that follows me around. I'm not being negative, I'm just telling the truth. I wanted to, I tell you, there isn't a day that goes by, and several times a day, where I don't feel like, I don't ask, what am I doing, you know, I don't ask, what's the point of all this. I don't just mean advocacy, addiction work, I mean living in general. I ask all the time, and yes, I have my son and his beautiful daughter, but my son, in spite of everything that happened, has grown up to be a well-adjusted, wonderful man who's a good husband, excellent husband, and an excellent father. And there are times, not that I would kill myself, that's not what I mean, but I ask, gosh, you know, I think my son would be fine without me. And I wonder what the point of life is. And I wonder, you know, I struggle with things, going through right now, you know, codependence. And I don't mean codependence just in relationships, but I mean, once you come through an active addiction with substances, right, you have a tendency to want to fill the void there because you want to still continue the feeling of pain. And because it's so uncomfortable, it's what I'm going through right now, and it's so uncomfortable, I can't stand it sometimes. I really can't. But I know that it's like exercising. If you don't get out there and run and push yourself, you're never going to get beyond a certain strength. And so I have to do it, and I'm never going to get beyond a certain maturity. My maturity stopped, and my emotional maturity, my, you know, IQ and all that. Intellectually, you know, I'm mature, but the emotional maturity and coping or whatever stagnated a long time ago. So I have to go through things that many other people have already gone through. And one of those things is filling the spaces when I'm going through something difficult. It's just distracting and keeping myself busy, which is healthy, but doing that with relationships or validation or whatever is unhealthy, and the risk of that is that you don't know true love, for instance in romantic relationships, because you are so you know, you get caught up, like for instance one breakup to another, because you don't ever want to be alone with yourself. Retaliation, and I have whatever ADD is, whatever, I wish they'd call it something else, whatever that is. Okay, I have that thing where I have poor impulse control, quick temper, whatever, and I've had this since I was a little girl. Apparently my aunt, who, you know, maybe I don't know, she had a bit of a screw loose anyway, and I'm just going to say that's true, but she said when I was about 3 that I threw such a horrible tantrum, and my mom came home. And I was having this horrible tantrum, and she had to throw cold water on me to get me to stop. And my mom threw her out for doing that. And my mom would throw anybody out for harming us. That's just the kind of woman she was. But she wasn't a disciplinarian, but she loved us. And that was the woman that I was. I didn't discipline my children necessarily, but I loved them to death. So therefore, I don't know discipline. So I lose my temper quickly. I am drawn to people who lose their temper quickly. I'm drawn to people who do similar things, or similar things I used to do, rather. And since I'm growing through that and then having those things happen, it's so painful for me to recognize those traits in myself and recognize those traits in them and try to distinguish between love and, you know, codependence, which is really, it's another addiction. And so I find myself asking myself, because I don't want to feel those feelings because it's so uncomfortable, and yet I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it without running to a drug or whatever. And I ask myself all the time, I ask God for validation. I say, God, how come, just throw me a bone, let me know what I'm doing is on the right path. And I never really get much. Well, I didn't think I used to get much. I'm like, well, I see people who I know don't care, because as much as told me so. You know, I have 15,000 followers, you know, and they don't eat, breathe, and sleep this. This is not their life. This is my life, you know, for my daughter to go on. And I often wonder, gosh, you know, why am I not there and her here? But then I realize that she really is probably in a better place. She is in a better place, you know, and she's been saved. So I have to do what I have to do. But it doesn't make it easy. I love that girl with all my heart. And I question myself all the time if I'm on the right path or not, you know, keeping my motives pure. So I want that reassurance and validation. And one day I realized I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. While I'm waiting for it, I'm not going to get it because it comes from ego, a reassurance. And you're supposed to walk in faith. Walk in faith that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing. And how you'll know what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing is that you eat, breathe, and sleep it. It is your passion, it is your life, and it is what keeps you going. And this is what keeps me going. In my daughter's memory, and even for those good souls, you know, that reach out to you, it gives me purpose. Makes me feel like I have a reason to live, because without it, what would I do, right? So when you're asking yourself, what should you do? And you're dealing with these uncomfortable emotions that you've been trying to avoid for so long, and you don't want to do it anymore, and you're waiting for the validation that other people have gotten. Be still and remember, if you eat, sleep, and breathe it, and it makes you cry, and it makes you hurt, then that's your purpose, and you don't give up. It's easier said than done, because often I want to give up because people are evil, people are mean. I've given up relationships. You know, I ask God, you know, maybe it isn't my purpose. Maybe we all have too many people sharing this and that and talking, you know, but my heart's still drawn to it, even when I don't get that validation, and I know I won't, until God says you're walking in faith, because even helping one person is more than enough. And I know that our story has, and I know that my daughter has. I look to her as the inspiration because I believe it's really her and her story of love and beauty and innocence that makes it compelling. Me, I was a lost child. I was lost. You know, things had happened, and I lost my parents, and I was cynical, you know, and here I am to this day still struggling with wanting to fill the empty spaces with distractions and with just things, you know, not necessarily drugs, but just anything to reassure myself. And I'm not doing it. And I feel lame sometimes, you know. I feel like I'm losing sometimes because I'm not. I keep telling myself, no, it's the strength training you should have gone through a long time ago, and you have to get through it, or you won't be able to walk a few feet without experiencing a blood clot or passing out. So, need the energy to get through the rest of this life without my daughter, you need to do the hard stuff, the emotional exercises, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So if you're doubting and you feel like, why am I bothering with this mess? I could just live my life the rest of my life and not do anything else or think about anything else other than myself, you could do that. But from a person who used to do that, and then lived for my children, but almost in a, you know, just think of a fortress lifestyle, right? Without letting anybody in, because people hurt you. It's inevitable. I mean, there's no one in my life that hasn't hurt me, even my son, and I've hurt him. You know, when he supports anything I do, that is without a doubt. But I know that intellectually he understands and he's empathetic to the addiction stuff as a result of me and his sister and his motivation to succeed at all times. Yet emotionally, he doesn't necessarily always connect because of the things that he saw, not with me necessarily, but with his sister, and how addicts stole from her and let her die and things like that. And it's hard for him to reconcile at times. So, but he told me ego is what keeps you going, and ego is not bad. Ego is self-esteem. It's the inflation or the unrealistic, disproportionate amount of ego that makes it bad. And I've looked at that and said, yes, that's right. A little ego is actually faith, walking in faith that your purpose, that you understand your purpose and you move towards it. and you do it every day. And as long as you are feeling the passion for it, you know that it is your purpose. If you feel no passion for it and you're just doing it for money, or you're doing it for to be noticed, and if that phone call or email where you've made a difference doesn't make you feel like on cloud nine, then yeah, it's probably not your purpose. But then again, God could be using you anyway. You used Judas, so who knows? Anyway, everybody have a great weekend, and you know, keep praying for each other, and I'll keep praying for you, and enjoy this unseasonably wonderful warm weather. I appreciate everybody for letting me share again.